what does this all mean, right? As more companies are trying to do this, as the NBA is testing, it's this really interesting shift, right, into understanding, well, if a player profile is trending towards like 12% injury risk, then we need to modify what their workload is. We need to modify, the minutes that they're playing. And that's going to change everything around the NBA, right? If you have this, again, they've had this testing for a while. They've been doing things behind the scenes. NBA has like their NBA Launchpad, NBA Equity, that are really working with early stage startups within the biomechanics, and obviously kind of across the landscape of sports, to understand a lot of these things, to be able to kind of help their players understand kind of where we are going now. And so I do think what's going to kind of happen here, Spo said it, I don't know if there's going to be a change in like the dollars, but I do think there's going to be a change in what we see, how we look at the word kind of load management, how we kind of talk about injury prevention. I think that's what the NBA is trying to get to, right? As like true kind of player health and player safety and kind of risk profiles here. Part of that is a little difficult. My brother had said this earlier on one of our podcasts. Again, all of our the C Talk podcasts you can find on Spotify, Apple, wherever you kind of get your pods. And he made a great point about this. When you do get so granular with the data, like the NBA has like the 65 game rule in order to be up for NBA awards, which also kind of affects future contracts and money down the line, right? That is kind of an interesting thing. And what that means in terms of like, if we're creating these baselines and your percentages have dropped and they decide to keep you out of game, or they decide to change something, and you don't hit certain metrics within your contract, there's a financial value to this as well for the players that is a little tricky, I think, to kind of discuss. I think, but there's also maybe kind of a sinister side to this as well, right? Having so much data on each player and what that means for the value of contracts and incentives and things like that down the line.